Now I'm not likely to become an anime review channel anytime soon, or even a TV or film review channel. It's not entirely my field, but occasionally I'll come across an anime or a TV show that will just grab my attention for all the right reasons. This happened to me recently with a show called xxxHOLiC. It's been around for quite a while now. I think it came out in 2006, and it's an anime that I discovered through a flowchart that I found on Reddit. It has about 200 different anime on it, and you just basically work out through questions of your personal tastes and preferences and what you're into, what anime you should watch next. So I was looking for an anime that was supernatural and psychological. These two things are genres that I've liked and enjoyed for many years, not just in anime but in literature, in films, in TV shows. But usually these terms are associated with horror and thriller. With xxxHOLiC I was kind of expecting more of the same, but it turned out very differently. So let me set up the premise for this show. We have a high school boy. He can see spirits, and he's continuously plagued by this ability, and even though it gets in his way, he uses it to his best advantage to help others. We have a very stunning lady who is very knowledgeable and strong, and generally helps him to work out what is the best thing to do in any situation. At his high school, there is a girl who is the love interest, I guess, but she's quite plain, she's quite ordinary, but don't worry, she'll become much more integral to the story later. And there's a guy there who is at once his best friend and his rival, who was raised by his grandfather. He's really pious and calm and patient, and even though he's not drawn that way, you can tell that he's pretty hench. He also uses a bow and arrow. The other setting, aside from the high school, is this shop that is run by a complete mad person who sends him out on missions where he may or may not get killed. It doesn't matter as long as he succeeds. And in that shop there are two kids who are, well, there's something that's not quite right about them, and it's hard to tell to begin with whether or not the shop can be seen by ordinary humans or not and interacted with. And then of course there's every anime's favourite, the mascot character. If this sounds like Bleach at all, that's what I thought as well. But here's the difference. Bleach was written by Tite Kubo. He conceived the idea when he was still in high school himself, and so essentially it is an anime created by a teenage boy slash teenage man child. I love Bleach, don't get me wrong. I'm still Bleach. I really want the 1000 Year Blood War arc to be released as an anime. I think that Bleach got none of the recognition that it deserved as far as the shonen genre goes. However, I have to admit that Tite Kubo kind of is a bit of a man-child, and you can see this through his rockstar appearance and the fact that all of his characters either rely on being extremely strong or extremely sexy, or both. It's all swords and sexiness. That's essentially what sells Bleach in the long term. But that first series of Bleach, where it's set very much in a high school and it's kind of supernatural high school drama, it was like somebody took that story, not even that story, it's like somebody took that concept and they gave it to a teenage boy on one hand, and then they gave the same concept to 4 women who run Clamp Media. The difference is incredibly stark. Like I said, Bleach relies very heavily on sexiness and swords and battles, whereas xxxHOLiC analyses people's behaviours and thought processes and their addictions. And actually this is where the title comes from. When you see the title, is read out xxxHOLiC. The XXX is nothing X-rated. It's rather like the forms you see where your 16 digits on your card are marked with X's. It's a blank space, and then it's holic, because what they're actually referring to is addictions, or rather habits of one's personality. It's all about habits essentially, and the habits that can make or break our lives, and how we fall into those habits in the first place. And the way that this happens throughout the story is it really digs deeper into the characters, into the psychology behind the characters. First starting with minor characters and then working their way back into some of the problems that the main characters have, but they were just letting lie there in the background. In this way, it reminded me much more of Fruits Basket than anything else. It's very sweet. All the characters are completely perfectly lovable characters. I think sometimes it's a little bit like the book Wonder, where once you analyse it, there are no bad characters. There's just some kind of story behind each character's decisions, and that is very much where Holic rises. A really nice slice of life anime, a nice drama type anime, which is very sweet and enchanting, but at some points also very dark. So yes, although it's got the premise to begin with of Bleach, and it's very much like, oh, this could go in a very dark supernatural turn, it ends up being very sweet, very endearing, and reminded me a lot more of Fruits Basket. Now the tone may be very much like Fruits Basket, but what about the subject matter? The subject matter for Holic, as well as being about human interactions and the little things that make our flaws come out and our strong points come out, this character analysis essentially of humans around us and how we interact with each other, as well as all that, there's a supernatural element that is based heavily on Japanese folklore, on Shintoist beliefs. And at times when you look at some of the characters, like the foxes who run the Odin shop for example, the whole anime feels very much like Ponpoko or Princess Mononoke, or maybe to a slight degree Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro. There's a lot of these little supernatural characters that pop up here and there, which once I looked into them by name were revealed to be yokai. It feels very much centered on human interaction, but also how that fits in with the whole Japanese aesthetic of their beliefs in, you know, centuries gone by. There's a lot of superstition, there's a lot of folklore, and there's a lot of yokai, which you may be thinking, oh well, this would be similar to Yokai Watch. Not too much, but I could see how you could go from that to this. One of the things that I often come across when I see Holic being discussed is the animation style. Some people really don't like the animation style of Holic, and it does seem a bit rough around the edges. To me it feels classic more than anything else. There's some very unusual artistic choices regarding the movement of the characters, particularly the main character Watanuki. Very sort of elongated, elasticated limbs. It just adds to the overall comedy, and this is actually in some cases a very funny anime, which I find difficult to come across sometimes, but there are some moments of genuine good humour in this anime. But yes, the animation style does feel a little bit flat to begin with. If you look at, for example, in the first few episodes, Moro and Maru, the two kids who I mentioned that live in the shop, they're very plainly drawn to begin with, and only later in the OVAs do they really come out as these well-defined characters in how they're drawn, at least, and how their design goes. In fact, the whole animation does get a lot better towards those OVAs, but more on where to find those OVAs and what they exactly are later. As a musician, one thing I really liked about Holic is its music. It is beautiful, it's minimalistic in some cases, just very repetitive, meditative kind of music that just builds and swells and then goes down and layers out the emotions of the scene so beautifully. It's a really strong anime as far as music goes. I watch a lot of anime that has good music, but this actually comes out as being pretty strong in an already excellent field. So the animation, so-so. The music, extremely good. The characters and storyline, I can't fault it. One other thing I wanted to mention was food. Food is central to XXHOLiC, and it's central to the main character, Watanuki. Throughout the series, every episode has a different dish that is either mentioned or shown on screen, and there's a lot of scenes where it's just him in a kitchen cooking. The main character cooking for various people. It reads a lot into the story as well. For example, you never see Watanuki eat until much later on, when he starts to have a bit more respect for himself. We see that the character Watanuki outwardly hates Domeki, who is always doing stuff for him. He always feels angry that he's always indebted to Domeki. But it doesn't matter, because every single day he makes Domeki's lunch, a beautifully constructed bento box. And he does the same thing for his love interest, Himawari. And essentially he goes to work for the witch, Yuko. And her main role for him is to heat sake and prepare delicious food. And even much, much later on, when he himself ends up living in the shop, he still cooks as his main way of interacting with other people. It's a beautiful message of love, affection and respect told through food. And if you're a foodie at all, you're into Japanese food or just into food in general, I can really recommend this anime to you, because they show such brilliant shots of food being made, and they also quote, at least in the Japanese subtitled version, so many different dishes that I am now having to go back through and watch it again and write down each one that is made, because I hope to be able to make some kind of vegan version of that dish for myself. So yes, that is essentially the setup to XXHOLiC, some of the characters from XXHOLiC, some of the strong points and weak points that I've discussed. I've left this whole discussion about it kind of vague so that you can go watch it, and basically I recommend it to you. If you're into that first season of Bleach, definitely go check this out, because it came out in the same year, but you can really see how that story could have diverged between, you know, the whole shonen anime that came from it and what Clamp Media would do with the same premise. If you're into Studio Ghibli films like Princess Mononoke or Pon Poko in particular, then definitely go watch this. You'll see a lot of references that crop up in both Pon Poko and XXHOLiC. They kind of tread a lot of the same grounds. That is based on old Japanese prints and folklore. If you're into Fruits Basket and other anime where it's very much that sort of quiet tone of, you know, people watching and what makes us all tick, that psychological aspect that's not necessarily rooted in horror but more in why we form the relationships that we do, then definitely go watch XXHOLiC. I cannot recommend it enough for people who watch Fruits Basket to then move over to XXHOLiC. It just fits to me. I suppose I could recommend it to you if you are coming from Yokai Watch. I don't know, maybe. There's a lot of yokai. You'll see some familiar faces presented in a very new, humanistic way. Those are some people I recommend it to. Otherwise, I just recommend it to anyone, really. I know I could have said that all along, but it's a really sweet anime. It's really just heartwarming, and unless you don't like that kind of thing for whatever reason, go and check it out. And on that note, places to check it out. The first season, which is 24 episodes long, can be found right here on YouTube. If you just put in XXHOLiC Season 1 or just write XXHOLiC Episode 1, go for the playlist, there'll be a playlist there of 24 videos. That is made by Funimation, who have the broadcasting rights to it, certainly in the West, as far as I know. I actually was looking for Holic before that, and they were saying, oh, you can get free trial for Funimation on Prime. You don't need to do that. It's right there on YouTube. Go watch it there. It's perfect. The second season, which is made up of 13 episodes, and the first OVA, which is made up of 2 episodes, can be found on a website called Anime Freak. All I'll say is, if you're watching this with kids and your family, because I think for older kids this show certainly would work. I'm thinking about showing it to my family, see what they think of it, but I feel like it would be hard to get my daughter to watch an anime that would be subbed right now. But you know, if your kids liked subbed anime, then you could watch this with them, absolutely. Just if you go to Anime Freak, some of the adverts around the edges can be a little bit, you know, just, you know, full screen it and then sit down with them. And the last OVA I had to do some real digging for, and I can't even remember where I found it. If you find a later series or one of the OVAs first, don't watch those before watching all the stuff that's gone before it. Not only will it not make sense, but you will give yourself huge spoilers and it will just ruin it. I just felt like sharing this with you guys. It's not something that I would normally do, is rate and review an anime, but if I find something that is really good or I wasn't expecting to find, then sometimes I just can't help myself. I will want to let people know about it. Let me know how that goes, and see you next time.